He tells me that he's grafting, but I don't know if he's just having a little nap in the paddock. We demonstrate bud grafting in more detail as requested by you.
The most important thing is making sure that the top and the bottom marry up perfectly.
Another successful graft. Yeah, that video was a disaster. Take two. That includes all of the detail you need for pre-grafting. Let's pick some scion wood. So beautiful day today. We are cracking on with grafting our young jackfruit trees. So my job is to go around and select the scion wood while Ian is grafting down in the paddock. There he is, lying down on the job. He tells me that he's grafting, but I don't know if he's just having a little nap in the paddock. Okay, so we did a lot of field grafting over the weekend, managed to get all of that done so far. We have got more to do, but what we could graft, we got done. And then the plan was to demonstrate bud grafting in more detail as requested by you. But then I went back to work and Ian decided that he was going to attempt to video that by himself. Yeah, that video was a disaster. I can see you. So, take two. So you want to take the scion wood from the tree that you want to replicate from, that's got the characteristics that you like. So the scion comes from that to go onto the rootstock. Before you start grafting, you do need to make sure that you've got the appropriate tools and equipment and that you've done all your cleaning and sharpening and all of that. Now, we did talk about that in detail in another video, which I'll put a link to in the description below. It's really important that you view that video as well, because that includes all of the detail you need for pre-grafting. Let's pick some scion wood. Okay, so when we are picking the scion wood,
Don't want it too soft.
We don't want it too soft. And for the jackfruits anyway, we don't really want hardwood. Some trees you are looking specifically for hardwood, but we're not with the jackfruits. And what we're looking for is where the nodes are, that Ian's pointing to right now. We want to be able to see the start of some little buds pushing. So you can see there, I don't know how well it'll come out on camera, but there is a little bud starting to push there. That is perfect. That's what we're looking for. So this is an example of what we don't want. So you can see here, this is where the node is. This has already pushed. It's got a well-established branch coming off. This is no good for us.
Even this one.
Yeah, even that one is just, it's too much. We're looking for the nodes like this one here.
It's just like a pinprick really, isn't it? The first sign of a...
Yeah, so just a tiny little bud in that node.
And personally, I don't like sort of the brown wood here. It's just too hard, that's all.
Yeah. So we've selected a couple of seedling jackfruit trees here, which we will use as our rootstock, and the scion that we've just picked will be grafted onto these trees using the bud graft, and that's what we'll show you now.
So what we use here is grafting tape from a proper nursery supply. There's a little bit of stretch in it. We personally use parafilm. This we get off the internet, don't we? Laboratory tape, is it? But it's quite wide, so we cut it in half. It's just easier to wrap. Secateurs and grafting knife. When you're doing bud grafting, that's when this little bump comes into its own here, because we use that to peel away the bark. So you can have your bud graft as long or short as you want, whatever you feel comfortable with. So roll that around there for the bottom, go down the side, applying reasonable pressure. You want to make sure that you get through the actual bark itself. So using this pointy end, you can sort of break the scion wood if you're not careful and cut through it. So that's where this little bulge comes in. You get that just underneath and slowly go up and down, and you're just working the bark away. Loosening it as you go. It's always tighter around the node here. Now this is definitely where grafting with the moon phase comes in, because the bark definitely comes off way easier, way easier during the optimal grafting period. And then you take this piece of wood now to your rootstock. So with this type of graft, the most important thing is making sure that the top and the bottom marry up perfectly, because sap flows up the tree. So think of the wood as like lots and lots of tiny straws, and it flows up, and if you aren't married up bottom and top, you're basically stopping the flow from here going up. The sides, yes, you do want the sides to join up, but it isn't as important. So down that side. So again, using this back edge, slide up and down to remove the bark from the rootstock. And this here, which feels very slippy, that's your actual cambium layer. I find it easier. Start the tape fastened like that. As I said before, the priority is the top and bottom. This is where you need about 3 pairs of hands. So we go reasonably tight. As you start to tighten up, if it moves, just adjust that slightly.
And you don't want to put this grafting tape over the bud.
No, because this doesn't break down. The parafilm will break down slightly and the bud will easily push through this, but it won't push through the grafting tape. Stretch this slightly.
So the grafting tape is used to get a good seal and apply some pressure,
Yeah,
and hold the scion wood in place. And then the parafilm is to keep the humidity up on the graft and protect it.
yeah, it stops the scion wood. I suspect it stops the scion wood from drying out. I'm getting, I don't know, stage fright here, I think.
Yeah, you're normally quicker at this.
Believe me, Angela, as I found out last night, actually times me on how long it takes me to graft. So that's
6 minutes a graft for anyone wanting to know.
that's out in the paddock, isn't it? Walking from tree to tree. Parafilm, this will stretch. And when you stretch the tape, that's when it becomes sticky and will stick to itself. So then just down and seal it nicely. Now the next graft, it will be, I suppose you'd call it a modified graft. If you're not overly confident joining the top and the bottom, this is just another way of doing the graft. So put that to one side. Okay, so this is, I suppose you'd call it I believe it's a modified bud graft. Using this back edge, just get it underneath and very slowly, a little bit at a time. Don't try and do too much in one go.
I find it quite satisfying doing this part.
What, lifting the bark off?
Yeah.
In terms of the moon calendar, the optimal time to graft, which is when the bark will come away from the wood easiest, you've got 11 days of optimal grafting, and that starts 2 days after a full moon. So you don't actually need to have a moon calendar, just so long as you know 2 days after a full moon.
Yeah, and we have tried to do this outside of those times just to experiment.
It doesn't come away easy.
It really doesn't come away. It's just not as slippy.
There's more, I believe there's more sap flow during that period.
Yeah.
Oop, there we go. So this is still a bud graft, but what we're doing is, I suppose best way to describe it would be you're making, or the cuts are going to be like a letter T. So you're going to slide down the middle there. You're going to work your way under the bark. This is why I find it easier to graft in the paddock, because I don't have this plant pot in my way.
Or a videographer in your way.
Yes, climbing all over my back. That doesn't help. So once the side flaps are lifted, we just slide the scion wood, the bud wood, down. But this time the only thing we need to worry about is lining up the top, because the bottom is underneath the wood there. And then it's simply, this is easier in the sense that because it's underneath it, the rootstock holds it in place. Again, don't cover the bud. A little thing that I do is, if I'm worried that it's going to cover the bud, I just put a little twist where the bud's going to be to make sure that it's easier for me not to cover it. The parafilm. And then stretch, and it will stick to itself. So that's the 2 bud grafts that we will use. The other graft would be the wedge graft. This is where the diameter of the rootstock and the scion wood becomes very, very important, because the cambium layer is on the edges, and you want that to line up spot on. So we're going to take this off. Then we're going to go right down the middle of the wood, rocking backwards and forwards. Don't try and think that you can just go straight down. It's easier to just rock it and go slowly. When you've got that, as clean and simple a cut as you possibly can, just down at an angle, and then the same the other side. A nice little finish so that it becomes a wedge shape. Then remembering the cambium layer, the feeding layer, is this minute thin little bit here, and that's why it's important to line them up. Grafting tape, once we've started and got some tension on, I like to just double check, because it's quite easy for this to just come off line.
Obviously we wouldn't be doing 2 grafts like this on the same
No, this is just
rootstock, but
demonstration.
this is just to show you the different techniques.
And then what we will do, we want to keep the moisture in here. This is grafting tape just around the base. It helps to keep the moisture in there, and this would stay on maybe a week, 2 weeks. Just ease that up so that it's not resting on the top, and that just helps this from drying out. You can wrap the scion wood with parafilm if you want, but I just find this is easier, quicker. This one here did about 10 days ago, and it's got buds pushing now. So that's the wedge graft or cleft graft.
Another successful graft. It's such a good feeling when you can see that your grafts have worked. This right here is another money tree in the paddock.
As you can see, the bud pushes through the parafilm, and the parafilm will break down. Once this bud is, say, 75 millimeters long, then we start pruning back the top, slowly taking away the top. Make sure no shoots come from below, because that's a rootstock. We don't want that, plus that will be taking energy away from the bud. And then when we've removed the whole of this rootstock here, that's when we'll cut down and remove that grafting tape. But for the time being, Angela likes to put a little pink ribbon on, say that it's actually pushed. And probably important for us anyway is that we have to put this cage over, because we don't want the wallabies damaging the bud there that's coming. But she likes to put little pegs on. There's white peg and then red pegs, and then she writes on the calendar when they were done. It just allows us to know how long they've been done and what's going to happen. Once they are pushing, she then puts ribbon on. That's her little OCD thing. Hope that helps. Thanks for joining us, and if anybody's got any better ideas or different ways of doing things, let us know. You never stop learning.